all sick and tired of Democrats and Republicans, and we're tired of not having leaders that actually care about us.
But we need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, starting with universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapon ban.
It has to be more difficult for somebody who is mentally ill and disabled like him to acquire weapons of mass destruction, weapons like an AR-15.
We don't want to disarm America. We want to make America have to work for their weapons.
A 19-year-old who can't purchase an alcoholic beverage should not be allowed to purchase an AR-15.
Let's tend to the obligations we have as public servants and elected officials to help create policy that keeps our communities, our students, our babies, our kids safe.
Upon being elected, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws. And if they fail to do it, then I will take executive action.
The only way in America and in Florida we are going to end these mass shootings and stop these bullets from flying is to use our ballots and vote out every single one of these NRA bought and paid for Republican cowards whose answer to dead American children every single time is thoughts and prayers instead of the legislative action that is needed, Joy, to stop and remedy this issue.
How can the government stand by while people are dying? We need to do something for the children. Guns are only useful for ending human life. Or so you would think if you just listened to the mainstream media and late-night talk show hosts. In reality, it's much more complicated than just shootings and laws. So for this video, we're going to see the other side of the argument. Do gun control laws actually make people safer? What is the extent of America's gun problem? And why do we even have a right to bear arms? These are all questions with answers, and I'll answer them. As usual, all links will be in the description. First, let's take a look at some of the data the left uses to push for gun control.
So a lot of people know that the U.S. has a lot of gun deaths. We have over 33,000 in 2013.
To the 30,000 men, women, and children who are killed with guns each year.
Okay, let's break this down. The number is accurate, but the way it's used is often misleading. 33,000 deaths from gun violence is just homicide, but most of those cases are actually suicides and accidents. Only about a third of them are actual homicides. But let's say you want to go with 33,000 anyways. Is that enough to justify gun control? Well, let's go with the extreme case that the US bans all firearms of every kind. What would that look like, and would it work? Well, Australia already did it with their mandatory buyback program, which, by the way, wasn't even a buyback because they used the people's money and taxes to buy back the guns. Like someone mugging you, and then the mugger buys your TV from you using your money. But anyways, about the buyback program. Was it successful? At first glance, it would seem so. Murder rates went down, but actually the murder rate just continued to decrease at the exact same rate it was before the buyback, which was implemented in 1996. And if you take a look at the graph, there was even a spike in 2002, 6 years after the buyback program was fully implemented. A lot of leftists also like to claim that the reason for our high homicide rate in the US is the amount of guns in our country. The US has more guns per person than any other country in the world, and a high homicide rate, while the UK has a low amount of guns and a low homicide rate. And they often show a chart of gun ownership rates and homicide rates in different countries, like these.
It shows that among highly developed countries, the more guns in a country, the more gun deaths. You can see that countries like Switzerland, which have relatively more guns than a country like the Netherlands, also have a higher gun death rate. And here's the US.
And if you look on the left there, the left side represents the number of mass shooters, and the bottom shows the amount of guns in a country. Now, where's America on this chart? There's America.
Okay, so the argument goes like this. The US has the highest gun ownership rate in the world and a high homicide rate. Inversely, the UK has a low gun ownership rate and a low homicide rate. Therefore, guns must cause this high homicide rate. But these are only two sets of data. Let's see if there actually is a correlation. The US has a gun for almost every man, woman, and child in the country, and the UK has a gun for every 20 people. What we need is a country right in the middle. Not too many guns, not too little. Switzerland is a really good candidate. They have 41 guns for every 100 people, in between America's 100 guns per 100 people, and the UK's 5 guns per 100 people. If the correlation holds, Switzerland's gun homicide rate would be around 41% of the US's gun homicide rate, which would be approximately 1.9 per 100,000. But actually, It's 0.17 per 100,000. This also ignores how the gun ownership rate has gone up since 1968, according to the Congressional Research Service. While gun ownership rates went up in that time, gun homicide rates have actually decreased in that time, according to the exact same source. Clearly, more guns does not definitively mean more gun homicides. But the root of the argument, we need to ban guns because they kill people, that just doesn't make sense. We don't ban cars, they kill about the same amount of people guns kill, and we don't ban cars just because they're convenient. Cars don't even save any lives. On the other hand, guns save 500,000 to 3 million lives each year when they're used in self-defense, according to the Institute of Medicine and National Research Council. Yeah, those numbers completely destroyed the argument that a good guy with a gun is a myth. But a leftist might disagree and say, but we still need more regulation to keep those 33,000 safe. All these laws will do is make it harder for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. And I say law-abiding because gun owners with carry licenses actually commit less crime than police officers. So it makes you think, do we really need to strictly control some of the most behaved people in the country? A leftist might reply, we need more regulation to keep those guns in the right hands, obviously. But then again, gun control laws in the US have proven to be ineffective at that. If laws alone deterred people, then no one would murder because it's illegal. Laws can be broken, and they are broken. That's how most criminals get their guns, from illegal sources. With all the laws in place to stop them, they're not effective because the laws can be broken. I'm not saying we shouldn't have any regulation at all, obviously, but I think regulation like the assault weapons ban of 1994 are pointless, useless, and unwarranted. But what even was the assault weapons ban? Well, the assault weapons ban made assault weapons illegal from 1994 to 2004. An assault weapon was legally classified in this bill into 3 categories: semi-auto rifles, semi-auto pistols, and semi-auto shotguns. It's a bit complicated, so I'll summarize. If rifles and pistols had detachable magazines and 2 or more assault weapon traits or characteristics, they were considered assault weapons. Shotguns could have no more of 2 of these characteristics, which included a detachable magazine. These characteristics included rifles and shotguns with pistol grips, collapsible stocks, and barrel shrouds, just to name a few. If you don't know what a barrel shroud is, here's a picture of one. It must be something really dangerous if it ended up in this bill, but it really isn't. It's an attachment to prevent burns from touching the hot barrel. Basically, if you could attach at least 3 things, it was an assault weapon. And semi-automatic isn't exactly a threatening trait either. When leftists hear semi-automatic, they usually imagine a US soldier holding down the trigger of an M16 mowing down Chinese troops in North Korea. But that's not an accurate view at all. Semi-automatic just means you pull the trigger once, 1 bullet is fired. But enough about the provisions of the assault weapons ban. Did it even work? Well, I don't know. Do you remember any school shooting that happened between 1994 and 2004? That's right. The infamous Columbine school shooting happened when all these laws were in place, and this bill was supposed to stop mass shootings. Okay, but why does the Second Amendment even exist? Why would the Founding Fathers give us a right to have a gun? That's just stupid. But there's more to the Second Amendment than hunting and self-defense, although its main function is defense. But defense from what? Defense from 3 types of threats: external, internal, and individual. An external threat would be, for example, a British invasion. An individual threat would be a gang member mugging you, and an internal threat would be a dictatorship or tyrannical government. The Second Amendment was mostly meant for internal and external threats, but we get bonus protection from individual threats too, thanks to the Second Amendment. But the biggest threat we could ever have in our country is a tyrannical government, and that's why we have the Second Amendment. If the government took away our right to free speech or religious freedom, we'd need guns to get it back. Without the Second Amendment, we wouldn't even stand a chance against a dictatorial U.S. Army. So, to summarize, gun control has not proven to save lives, while guns have and do save lives in the U.S. More guns does not mean more death, and the Second Amendment is meant to ensure our freedom and security as much as possible without them interfering with each other. It's not common sense to infringe on constitutional rights, and to stand on the graves of dead children to push your political agenda is wrong, evil, and it will not change the facts about this topic. This quote from Benjamin Franklin really summarizes the debate on whether or not to ban guns. Those who would trade safety for liberty deserve neither and will lose both. Anyways, that's all I have to say about guns for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you didn't, be sure to tell me why in the comments, but keep it civil please, and try to keep emotions out of the argument. But if by chance you actually did like the video, thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate that people actually take time to watch my videos. I'm going to try to upload weekly from now on. Once again, thank you for watching, and remember to stay informed.